Hello, and welcome to Come to Think of It. My name is Steve Nemirovsky, and I'm your host. For this episode, we are going to again examine two themes of significant importance. One, the failure of the press and media to deliver accurate, unbiased reporting. And two, learning where you can go to get better informed, particularly with respect to the most important of all civic responsibilities, making the best possible decisions when you vote. I hope you've already seen our segments with Ad Fontes Media and Ballotpedia. For those of you who have not, Ad Fontes is an important website that rates the media, including other websites, for both bias and reliability. Ballotpedia, a longtime favorite and contributor to my earlier None of the Above programming, is among the highest rated for both accuracy and lack of bias. You can find these episodes on GrassRoots TV website and on our YouTube channel. Another site that is very highly regarded for both accuracy and lack of bias is USAFacts. USAFacts also responds to another failing of the press and media, their lack of depth. There are too many times and too many important issues when news can't be covered in sound bites and texting-sized content. As you know, I've moved away from traditional sources. I spend more of my time reading instead of listening and taking deeper dives into lengthy articles and books to become better informed. So we're coming to think about USAFacts today and the important work they do. Joining us is Jessica Piha, the Communications Director. Jessica, welcome to Come to Think of It.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me.
So I've done 5 years of my other show, and this one just starting this year, and I feel like you're the first royalty that I've had on the show, because you've won 2 major awards for journalism, Peabody and DuPont Columbia Award. So maybe before we get to USAFacts, let's get to you. Well, tell us how great you are.
Well, okay. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me and for talking about USAFacts. I started out my career in broadcast journalism in the early 2000s. At that time, things were very different. We were using tape, we were feeding things. Technology was just at the beginning of the forefront in terms of how we were using it in journalism. And so a lot of what we did was really grassroots. And so during that time, 2 major events happened. The Southeast Asian tsunami, which happened in Banda Aceh in Indonesia, affecting hundreds of thousands of people across Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, as well as the 2004 Hurricane Katrina, which, as you may remember, is one of the costliest and deadly storms that ever has hit the United States. And so those 2 events earned my team a Peabody and a DuPont, and very, very proud of the work that we did there. I also was part of a team that was a little too early to launch mobile newscasts on mobile phones. So at that time, there was no iPhone. There was your BlackBerry, and then there was a flip phone. But we had done a partnership with Ericsson where we were going to basically deliver quick 90-second news stories to mobile phones. So a little too early for that. Obviously, with the revolution of the iPhone, that became much more popular, but was part of that team at CNN International, and then went into public relations and doing communications, which brought me to where I am today.
So that's a good word, and it's such a broad word, doing communications. Mm-hmm. Tell the viewers what you do, other than communicate.
Yeah, so in my role currently at USAFacts, I work mostly with the leadership and executive team on putting out really great data-oriented stories and thought leadership pieces on why we believe government data is the people's data and should be as transparent and easy to access as possible. So in my role, I'm continuously working with my leadership, with members of the media like yourself, or the new media, as I like to call it, as well as legislators and press secretaries on delivering them really comprehensive government data briefs on what's happening within their communities, what's happening with big issues that Americans care about the most, like education or immigration. So you'll find me a lot on the phones with people. You'll find me, kind of schlepping back and forth between places when our founder, for example, Steve Ballmer, is in New York City doing an interview with Jon Stewart, or our president, Poppy McDonald, is speaking at Milken Global Conference. So really trying to get our brand and the credibility and trust that we've accumulated out there.
And my way of thinking about it, in the communications experts that I've dealt with, is you've got a product, you've got a message, you've got USAFacts,
Yep.
and they have to get reported on, and you want them reported on in an unbiased and reliable way. So I see you as kind of the go-between, because you've developed this great product, but you want to make sure your great product is understood in the right way in the back end. Fair enough?
Totally fair enough. And then we do have our own products. I mean, we have a newsletter that has 650,000 subscribers. We have a TikTok channel that continues to do very, very well. And then we also have annual reports that we put out for Congress specifically that kind of goes over some of the biggest issues and really helps them understand what's happening within government when they're so occupied with different bills coming through and all the media they now do. I mean, it really does enable them to deep dive into the data in a very nonpartisan way.
So I want to get more into the weeds on all that stuff. Before we do that, I want to do the 10,000-foot part. Steve Ballmer, who's your founder,
Yes.
he's a fairly well-known gentleman for his success with Microsoft.
Yes.
And owning professional basketball teams and
Yes.
everything else he does. But I assume one day he just doesn't wake up and say, oh, I got to have USAFacts. Why do we have USAFacts? Why does it exist?
So I would say I'd like to thank Connie Ballmer for that, his lovely wife. And Connie was dabbling in philanthropy. And Steve, when he retired from Microsoft, Connie said to him, I want you to help with this. This is a big deal. And Steve said, but doesn't government do that? We just pay our taxes and government helps in these programs. And him being like, I'm gonna do my research. He's a data-driven guy, goes to look into the numbers. And what he thought was gonna be like a couple days took him like a couple months to figure out where government takes in the revenue and what it spends it on. And so he truly found it fascinating and troubling that there wasn't a single source that he could go to be able to get that information. So with the creation of USAFacts at that time, he said, everyone is a stakeholder in this democracy. We all pay our taxes. We deserve to have trusted, reliable, accessible data to understand what government is doing for us. And so, thus, USAFacts was born.
Interesting. And there's a process that I think you go through from the point of maybe having a thought of a question that needs an answer, and how you then go aggregate the data and how you finally get the data to the public. Can you walk us a little bit through how that process works?
Yeah, so first, data sources, as you can imagine, are very fragmented. There are certain things that are collected from the Department of Homeland Security on immigration, but there's also Custom and Borders Control. So to be able to collect that all and paint a full picture is not an easy task. So we have a team of data analysts and researchers who collect that data. They then clean that data to make sure it is reflective of the current state, right? It's very contextualized. And then we circulate it. And we circulate it with either articles, data visualizations, and now we've been doing video for the past, I would say, year and a half, where Steve has personally come out with videos made by USAFacts and partners, where we basically push them out on issues that Americans care about. These are 15-minute videos to explain the issues, and a lot of Americans have been finding that these videos are really helpful, and they're very easy to contextualize, because you can't learn about immigration in a minute. You have to walk through, there's different kinds of immigrants. There's unauthorized, there's authorized. I mean, there is very, very different layers to immigration. And when someone hears a soundbite from a politician or a media personality, that doesn't tell the whole story. So we've been putting together videos that basically help educate the American people on issues like taxes, tariffs, and trade, as well as last year was education, health policy, and immigration and the economy.
So, one of the things that's been in the news for a really big time early in the year, and it's dissipated a little bit now, is Doge.
Yes.
And I've tried to understand what Doge is doing, and it seems as though a lot of the messaging I'm hearing coming out of it is basically how messed up things are inside of government with respect to systems that don't work, or things that haven't been modernized, or where AI should have been brought in to help figure things out. Are you playing a role in that, and particularly to help government and Doge get us to a more efficient world?
So I would say we're not directly involved in Doge, but I can say that what we've created and compiled on USAFacts.org has been very beneficial. I mean, we had Elon Musk tweet out our government spending chart, which basically goes deep, deep, deep into the inner workings of funding of the federal government and where each department gets funding, how that trickles down. I mean, it's very, very comprehensive. The other thing that we did is we launched a Doge newsletter, understanding each department and each agency, what falls under their purview, what funding, how many people work for each agency. That also has been very, very educational. And then on the modernization front, yes, we have testified for Congress on the modernization of data and technology for the federal government, as well as we've worked with the Department of Commerce on creating basically a playbook for utilizing AI safely within the government. So we are big proponents of using technology to get data extrapolated faster, to make it more standardized. So we have actually had recommendations put forth with the Department of Commerce on how to do that cross-agency.
So this, to me, it's like a living oxymoron, because we have government has data, government has departments, and the departments have data, and you would think that they would understand this.
Yeah.
Yet you have had to set up a system to independently go in and educate the staffers in Congress.
Yeah, we
right?
actually have
as to how to get into the government, to figure out how government works. So you're teaching the people that are supposed to be working government how to make government work.
It is actually really interesting because we did start a class called Data Skills for Congress.
Yeah, I saw that, right.
Yeah, and that is the perfect example of people coming into these roles and policymakers of really, our wish is needing to know the data, and then they can have the discussions and debates over how we should go about handling taxes or how we should go about handling foreign aid. Those debates should start with an agreement on the numbers. And so that's something that we really have been pushing in our advocacy work, is for legislators to use the data that is at their disposal and then build upon that in policy.
You know, when you were talking, and I don't mean to make this political, because I don't want it to be political, but I'm thinking of that famous quote from Nancy Pelosi when they're voting on the bill, and she basically said, well, we have to pass the bill so then we can read it and figure out what we just voted on. I mean, it's essentially, those are her words. But you're the people that are helping them figure it out maybe before they read the bill. I don't know.
Well, we just say, here's the numbers, how people decide to pass policy. Obviously, it's very political. We all know that. But we do believe that it is up to the American people, and it is up to our legislators to have the data to decide what is the best course of action. So I think what makes USAFacts really unique is we're not pushing a position on anyone. We are saying, here's the data, and then you decide as an American, is this government, is this working for you? Is this issue delivering to you the way you believe it should be handled? Or do you disagree or agree, and are you gonna use that at the voting box? So I think that, to me, has been the most important thing as we've seen mainstream media turn more into position type networks or organizations. We've really prided ourselves on saying each American is educated in their own right. They know what's best for them and their family. We're giving them the data. They can decide.
What I want to do next is jump into the actual website so you can do a bit of a tutorial. But let's take a quick break, and then we're going to do that.
Fabulous.
Thanks.
Have you ever felt lost in the voting booth? With 518,000 elected officials in the United States, it's no wonder elections are complicated. From local school boards to the presidency, there are so many choices. And that's where Ballotpedia comes in, your one trusted source, because the only unknown on your ballot should be who gets your vote. Our sample ballot lookup tool shows you exactly who and what will be on your ballot. Just enter your address, select your upcoming election, and prepare to vote informed. You can even save your favorites and print your completed sample ballot. With Ballotpedia, vote with confidence and vote informed.
We're back with Jessica Piha from USAFacts, and I'm going to not ask any more questions. I'm just going to say go, and she's going to walk you through her website with a bit of a tutorial so you can become great fans of USAFacts. Jessica, go.
Thank you, Stephen. Well, first of all, you mentioned you had Vanessa with Ad Fontes Media chart. I am very, very proud to say that we are actually ranked the highest.
Right up on top.
Right up on top when it comes to the most trusted and least biased. We've continuously been on this chart for a couple of years, and we are very, very proud of that because that to us signifies that what we're doing is working and that we continue to hold ourselves to that high standard.
So now you have the chart up there. I was mentioning Ballotpedia that I'm associated with. I typed out, we're fifth below you. So you beat us. And
but you're close.
You've thrown down the gauntlet. Next time that chart goes up, you'll be 2.
I love it. A little friendly fight. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking about with USAFacts? So this is USAFacts.org. So we basically say if you've got questions, we've got answers straight from the source, and we mean government sources. So whether that's the Bureau of Labor Statistics, whether it's Department of Defense, we go only to government data sources. And the reason we do that is because in a lot of surveys or third-party research, there tends to be bias. It tends to be funded by someone who maybe has a bias, or advertisers. We don't do either. We are fully funded by Steve Ballmer, who is nonpartisan. He does not donate to either party. He is very, very committed to being nonpartisan and to having USAFacts basically be his public service to Americans. So let's go look at the government spending tab, because I did say that's how Steve founded it. He was really interested in government spending. So we've created this chart called the Sankey. And basically what it does is it tells you where revenue is coming in from and where it's going out to. So
the left side is in, the right side is out.
Right side is out. So as you can see, the most is individual income taxes. That's the most that is collected by the federal government. So all of us pay into that. And then where does it go? Well, let's see. 1.3 trillion goes to defense. 874 billion goes to Medicare. And then if we were to click on Social Security, 1.5 trillion goes into retirement. We go to national defense and we see where that flows to, support for veterans. This also, veterans readjustment benefits, pension and disability, medical care, housing, other services. You're really able to see where the money is going, and it gives people a lot of comfort in knowing, oh, wow, so you're telling me that foreign affairs is $71.9 billion. Okay? Seems like a huge number. But when you're talking about the U.S. government, federal funding, it's nothing compared to the $874 billion that is paid out for Medicare. So it really gives you an idea in terms of grasp of how the money is spent.
And I also notice where the blue meets the pink, at the bottom of the blue, there's that black and white warning signal there that basically says the deficit. And based upon the numbers you're currently showing on your website, we've got about a $2 trillion deficit. Not good.
Yep, not good. Not good. Definitely something that we keep very close eyes on. And because we do believe that having a balanced budget and being fiscally responsible is important. We all have to manage that in our own lives. So government should probably do that as well. And so But again, we don't take a position one way or another.
No, I understand.
We just say, here's the data. You can decide, is it good to spend $1.3 trillion on defense? Is it good to spend $1.5 trillion on Social Security? These are the debates that are in Congress. And then you can actually do it by department. So let's look at the
Oh,
department.
that's very cool.
Let's look at the Department of Agriculture. So, Department of Agriculture, spending $203 billion, economy, standard and living, aid to the disadvantaged, and SNAP, which some people are like, oh, I didn't know SNAP was under the Department of Agriculture, but it is. So you can also do it by agency, and then we'll tell you it's 48.4% of the $203 billion that goes into the Department of Agriculture. So you're really able to get a close look. So people should play around with this. It's actually very, very interesting.
Now, will there also be a narrative on SNAP associated with, so if someone doesn't know SNAP and they just get to that block, how will they understand that part?
So I actually really, really like that you can go to our search bar and you can put in SNAP. How many people receive SNAP benefits in the United States? And we're in Colorado, so let's go to Colorado. So last year, about 584,500 people received SNAP benefits in the state of Colorado. And if you continue to scroll, that's 9.8% of Colorado's population. We also measure it across time. So as you can see, SNAP benefits have risen substantially in the 2020s compared to the 1990s and who's receiving it. We show where the source is because we think it's very important people understand where this data is coming from. And we encourage people to sign up for our newsletter, which currently has 650,000 subscribers with a 48% open rate, which is like unheard of. Send it once a week, give you the data.
Is there one newsletter across all topics, or does each topic have a newsletter?
So right now we just have one main newsletter that different topics like economy, immigration is something we're thinking about. We just really, really have such an engaged audience, and we want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So right now, just our main newsletter, but I think you'll see eventually in due time that we will break out into specific topics.
So at the top are the main topics you're covering: economy, crime, government spending, healthcare, immigration. Someone can go on USAFacts, is .com, .org?
.org, USAFacts.org. And
find a topic.
And you can find it for your state. So another thing is, what I really love is that anyone can go get a question answered and also understand where this local data is. How many people are in prisons in each state? You can go there. So I really do encourage people who want to know unbiased facts on the status in their state on different topics to go here.
Okay. No, this is fantastic stuff. And no, way over to the right where it says more. What's
Yes.
more?
So these are other topics that we have a lot of data on. I would say that these are our core topics. So you're not going to get the breadth or the localization as much. However, for education, we do have in a phenomenal way for people to see what percentage of public school funding comes from federal government by county. And by school district. So if you were to go to Alabama and you wanted to know, well, what county? What about this county, Coleman? You know how much per student is getting federal funding. So it also is a larger conversation as policymakers debate what the Department of Education is doing. So for people in Alabama, they might say, oh, I want to know, wow, my county school district is getting almost $6,000 per student in federal funding. if that goes away, what's going to happen to the quality of education? These are really good questions, and now people have a personalized look into this localized data.
I want to spend a few minutes with Jessica talking about the role of USAFacts and this healthcare discussion we're having right now. So Jessica, I'm going to just say go again.
Go, yeah. So obviously health is one of our major topics. It's something that we track very, very closely. We are actually a very trusted source for legislators and the American people. For example, during the COVID era, we were the only ones, one of the only ones, I think Johns Hopkins was doing as well, actually calling local sheriff's offices, getting the data and compiling and pulling it all together. So much so that the Trump administration relied on USAFacts and would call us in the middle of the night to get the data, the latest data, because there wasn't an aggregate place. So we're here really talking about the importance of government data in health and how we should be using this data to better inform policy decisions moving forward. So we saw a problem with the COVID data. There wasn't a full picture, and we're advocating, hey, we need to be ready for anything that may happen so that the government takes care of this themselves. Steve always likes to say, Steve Ballmer, our founder, I would love if USAFacts eventually wouldn't exist because the government would do such an amazing job of collecting data. But that's not their core competency. We do have amazing career civil servants that do collect this data, and we're very, very thankful to them. But it's not aggregated and cleaned and collected and put out in an easy to understand way, and that's why we exist.
So you did COVID, and I did some scrolling around the website. You've also identified two other very important topics that to educate people on. One, I think, is drug issues related, and one is mental health. How did you come to those two issues?
Yeah, so obviously fentanyl opioid overdoses are huge in this country and has been a very big problem. So we continue to get a lot of interest from our users on the latest data for that. So we really do understand what our consumers want, what the American people want in terms of data. And mental health and opioid overdose usage is some of the biggest questions that we get asked.
So as I always find on my shows, time runs out much faster than I wanted. One last thing, because that's all we're going to have time for today, is how have you brought AI into your world?
Yes, so I mentioned, I think we are working with the Department of Commerce. We actually, or maybe I didn't mention this, maybe it was in the talk last time, but we actually worked with the Department of Commerce to put out a standardization of how departments should be using AI in a very, very cautious way, but also modernizing that technology and using it to be able to extrapolate data faster. So we're currently using that in our own website, but we also believe that there are hallucinations, there are a lot of different ways that AI could not represent the correct stuff. So right now, a human should always have that touch on making sure, is it correct before it goes out? And we've taught departments on how to do that.
And I know that for some people, AI is the end of the world, and for other people, it's the most exciting thing that's ever happened. But it would seem in your particular part of the world, where you're trying to make data more available, more user-friendly, educate the voters and the consumers, there's a wide world of opportunity as to what that can do to help enhance your product.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of opportunity. We're also very cognizant that we don't want to move from that ad fonts media bias chart because we don't have someone double checking. Right now, we go through like 6 or 7 different data checks to make sure that what we're putting out into the world is correct.
You've been a great guest. I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for your time. I asked twice. I said to Jessica, just go, and that's my instruction to you: go. Go to USAFacts, go right now after the show's over, learn this site. Do not only get your news in sound bites, only from places that are not in a good place on the ad fontes chart where they're way over here or way over there on bias. This is a very factually correct, very reliable, very unbiased organization. And in fact, that's where you should start. Start there and then branch out and see where you want to go. Thank you for joining us today, and please come again to Come to Think.